and on display today what Moscow considers a new world order.
Today we're seeing a new, more just world order take shape. And the meaning behind the United Nations is important as ever. We must strengthen its coordinating role, making it central in global affairs, achieving and maintaining the principles and standards enshrined in its UN Charter in all their interrelatedness.
But it's, the world order is changing. Putin is on the back foot at the moment. We should be under no illusion about that. And it wouldn't surprise me if he had his fingers in the pie and was helping to stir India and Pakistan, because if he can get anything to take the world's eyes away from what's going on inside Ukraine, he will try that. And this is something that we have to be careful of. Middle East next.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you're right, actually. And just looking at Sudan and how that's a proxy war with various entities stirring things up and selling weaponry. We live in dangerous times, that's for sure. Philip Ingram, thank you ever so much. I'll get your thoughts on this very quickly before we go to break. I don't know where you were at on your geopolitics, but one thing that is clear to me, you've got the Crinklies, as they're called, which is basically the BRICS group of nations enhanced, which is China, Russia, India, North Korea. Well, no more like China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and India sort of plays both sides. I never understand how Iran fits into all of this, because, Russia has its own issue with Islamism.
It does.
And then Iran's there sort of stirring the pot.
It's about being the disruptor, isn't it?
That's the schism, I think, that we need to make happen, sort of break up the cosy relationship between Russia and Iran, make them realise that they actually hate each other. Yeah, I mean, it's very obvious, isn't it? We live in an increasingly unstable world, and it's quite clear we live in a world with a sort of, this multipolar world with these two axes.
But we have named globalism is another one of those isms. It's another one of those ideologies. And it's one that holds that the world's nations and peoples should be closely connected through economic, political, and cultural values. In other words, one world government, one world economy, one world religion. And they should all be working in cooperation, creating a system where national borders matter less and international collaboration is prioritized. So if you want to try to understand some of the things that are going on in our own country over the last few years, why were the borders left wide open and people encouraged to come in? It was because people who were writing the policy had a globalist view. They thought the answer to the problems in the world is to eliminate national identities and national borders, and that everybody be able to freely move around the earth and change basically the social and political and economic dynamics of society and of the world. And then when you talk about people we name like George Soros, that's literally George Soros's ideology, and that's why he's spending millions upon billions of dollars to have the open borders society and all of the other NGOs that run off of that, because he believes that's the answer to what's wrong with the world. He believes nations are the source of war. But saying all of that, it really comes down to this idea that there's going to come in Daniel and Revelation this last final man-made global empire, if you will. And we're told very clearly, here in chapter 18, for example, that it will reign over the kings of the earth. Kings is this word basileo in the Greek literally just means a ruler, a guy who's in charge. It can be a president, a prime minister. We just often translate it as a king, but that wasn't really necessarily a biblical term, king. In fact, the Romans called it rex. Basileus was the term they gave to the guy who was in charge of the Greek world. And it basically speaks about whoever is the ruling, governing CEO.
Then in another breath, those two are hanging out at the sort of, victory parade in Moscow, having sort of joint forces saying, look, if we get together, the world's in peril.
Yeah, well, yes, and this is where the Victory in Europe Day parade in Moscow was very interesting. You got all of those despot leaders coming together. The Xi Jinping, leader of China, and Vladimir Putin was probably the most important that was there. But again, Putin was putting on a big display. This is the first time in a number of years that we've seen as many armoured vehicles on display, and then aircraft flown. I'm surprised the Russians still have so many aircraft and so many armored vehicles.
In an annual parade that filled Red Square with military hardware and dozens of foreign leaders.
Vladimir Putin once again tied Russia's past triumphs to today's war in Ukraine, and he also further tied Russia's fate to that of China. Here's Nick Schifrin.
In Moscow today, pomp, pageantry, patriotism, a show of force from the intercontinental missile carriers of the Cold War to the drones of the Ukraine war. Vladimir Putin's Russia ties what many Russians consider their finest moment, victory over Germany, to today's confrontation with the West. And on display today, what Moscow considers a new world order, an alliance of autocracies led by the leaders of China and Russia, with the help of North Korea, and nearly 30 visiting leaders to help Putin weaponize the past to justify the present.
Russia has been and will continue to be an indestructible wall against Nazism, Russophobia, and anti-Semitism. Truth and justice are on our side. Our whole country, society, and people support the participants of the special military operation.
But left unsaid today, Russia's vulnerabilities to the war in Ukraine. The internet here was jammed, and the stage where dignitaries sat reportedly fitted with a roof to stop drones. Yesterday, Putin and Xi Jinping further cemented what they call their no-limits partnership. They released a joint statement pledging to, quote, decisively counter Washington's dual containment of Russia and China, and demanding a Ukraine settlement, quote, eliminate its root causes, which they mutually defined as Western alliances.
In the face of the countercurrent of unilateralism and the active power politics and bullying in the world, China will join Russia in shouldering a special responsibility and promote an equal and orderly multipolar world.
And that just shows that they're standing back to back and supporting each other in this order that used to be an America-centered, and now it's increasingly up for grabs.
Alexander Gabuyev directs the Carnegie Russia-Eurasia Center and says Xi and Putin cannot be separated and believe time is on their side.
Arrival of Donald Trump brings in itself a lot of unpredictability, but also a lot of opportunities for them. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin feel very emboldened, and they know that working together is the surest way to deliver this post-Pax Americana, a new multipolar world order where they will be standing tall, dominating their respective regions.
But it was those kind of things that we anticipate and look forward to something, but we never really know for certain what's coming. And yet there's a difference, because as we look at a troubled world like we have today, and there's a lot of troubling things. I mean, there are wars literally taking place, maybe not major worldwide wars, but significant serious conflicts that are taking place that even our local media doesn't cover at all. You know nothing about the conflict between India and Pakistan right now, or about what's going on in southern Sudan or in Nigeria, and different places where they don't really kind of catch the attention, and they aren't like the clickbait that we want to get people to follow. And so they go along really kind of unnoticed, unreported. But when you begin to realize the plethora of problems that there are in the world, you realize that we aren't, as the saying once said, every day getting better and better in every way. In fact, we begin to wonder if just the opposite is true.